Hi, I'm Antonio Mora. Today I've got an alternate universe segment, the great divide between conservative and liberal media. I went on a bit of a rant recently about how the language used in much of today's media has abandoned traditional journalistic rules to convey bias, subtly and not so subtly. I didn't know that the Rand Corporation would subsequently publish a study that confirmed my points in even greater detail, clearly stating that U.S. journalism has become more subjective. The Rand Report is part of a series the think tank is producing on what it calls truth decay, which it defines as the diminishing role that facts, data, and analysis play in today's political and civil discourse. I should begin by saying that reaching a perfect standard of objectivity is impossible. No matter how unbiased any journalist or editor tries to be, their experiences, their prejudices, even their workplaces will inevitably color what they write or what they report on TV. However, what some have called enlightened subjectivity is achievable. That simply requires an honest attempt at objectivity, critical analysis of one's own reporting, openness to others' opinions, and a real effort to provide different perspectives. It's also not much to ask that news outlets be forthcoming and truthful about what they do. Editorial content should be labeled as such as newspapers. Television news networks should also be clear in telling their audiences which shows are straight news and which are opinion. According to Rand, the blurring of fact and opinion is only one of the ways in which journalism has become less objective over the past 28 years. The most alarming to me is that we've become so polarized that we can't even agree on what the facts are, even when there is clear data or even video. Remember the arguments over what CNN's Jim Acosta did or didn't do when struggling for a microphone during a presidential press conference, even though the whole incident was filmed? Over the period of its study, Rand also found an increasing volume of opinion over fact-based reporting and declining trust in the media in general. I'd argue that the decline in trust is a direct consequence of the move away from factual reporting. Now, even though reporting as a whole has demonstrably become more subjective over time, some types of journalism are less guilty than others. Rand takes a scientific approach at analyzing the various types of journalism and finds that traditional newspapers have been much less infected by subjectivity than other news outlets. It notes that newspaper reporting really hasn't changed that much in the internet era, remaining consistent in its focus on information and detailed event or context-based reporting that used to be what we'd expect from all news coverage. Broadcast television, what you see on CBS, ABC, and NBC, has undergone a more pronounced change. Rand finds that since 2000, the reporting we see on the big three networks has lost much of its precise and academic tone, relying less on straight news and more on emotion, interpersonal interactions, arguments, and opinions. Rand didn't distinguish among the networks, although it's clear to me that CBS does a much better job than the others in avoiding sensationalism and subjectivity. The report also finds that broadcast news and cable news are very different animals, distinctly different forms of news. The divergence between them has gotten more extreme in recent years, specifically, in my opinion, since Barack Obama became the Democratic nominee in 2008 and the subsequent advent of the Tea Party, although that pales in comparison to what's happened since the political rise of Donald Trump. At that point, sharply distinct narratives became the rule at all the major cable news networks, leaving attempts at objectivity in the dust, even among daytime shows that are purportedly not opinion-based. The differences between broadcast news and primetime cable news program is even more extreme. The report finds that the evening news shows have exhibited a dramatic and quantifiable shift toward subjective language, with content that is based more on expressing opinion and advocacy than on reporting facts. Finally, to nobody's surprise, the study finds that online journalism is even more personal and subjective than other forms of news. Conclusion: whining about how the present is worse than the past won't get us anywhere. News will inevitably evolve, or in this case, devolve, to a more subjective form. It is important, though, to call out the hypocrites who promote themselves as objective journalists when they're really purveyors of opinion. It will be increasingly crucial to find ways to help readers and viewers distinguish between the two.